Welcome to the Scandinavian MIND podcast, our weekly show about how technology is changing the creative industries. Today on the program, the state of beauty innovation. We are giving a preview of our beauty innovation report, which was in part published in the latest print issue of Scandinavian MIND. We will talk about how the future of beauty is phygital, innovative packaging, what clean beauty means in the year 2023, biotech and everything surrounding that, and the latest development in beauty retail. All of this on the occasion of our upcoming Insights newsletter called, of course, Beauty Innovation. We'll talk more about that in this show. My name is Konrad Olsson, Editor-in-Chief and founder of Scandinavian MIND. And I'm here with my dear colleague, our senior editor and resident beauty expert, Johan Magnusson. Johan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It feels awesome to do this. We did a couple of episodes back a special episode on, let's do a little ASMR here, the new print issue of Scandinavian MIND, issue 4. But we left out a big, important part of this issue, and that is this beauty innovation report, which you have been working quite a lot on. Have you measured all? Have you taken account of all the hours you've spent on this?
Countless
hours. And for people who visited SIF, Copenhagen International Fashion Fairs, back in early February, you might have catched our kind of joint keynote on this topic as well. But we decided to do a special podcast on this topic. Johan, maybe you can set this up for us. Why are we doing this?
We're an innovation-driven platform, and as we write in the new issue of the print magazine, the industry that's being the most innovative now is most likely the beauty industry. You can see innovation in certain parts in all the sectors that we cover, but not close to the level of innovation as in the beauty industry.
It's estimated that the beauty industry will reach $560 billion. Okay, vi tar om det där. It is estimated that... Jag läser det här istället. Yeah, and as we say in the intro to this report, according to Precedence Research, global cosmetics market is expected to grow at 5.1% the upcoming 10 years, reaching $560 billion in the year 2030. So quite a lot of action going on in this sector. It's
hard to comprehend, yeah.
I don't even know what that is. What does it even mean? It's a lot. What I find fascinating and what we'll get into, we've defined 5 kind of key themes, key trends happening in the beauty innovation space. It's both kind of a sustainability issue in many parts, and that's why we cover this topic so much in Scandinavian MIND. But as you mentioned, kind of innovation is kind of built into the industry. What do you mean by that?
So the consumer behavior has rapidly changed, not the least here in the Nordics. When I speak to international brand representatives, they have a huge respect for the Nordics and being, like us here in Stockholm, if they visit Stockholm or Copenhagen or wherever it is. And it's not because they are just friendly to me as a journalist, but you can see in their eyes that they're a bit more focused and a bit more like, this is where it happens, because we're so demanding, and also my editor colleagues, they are so demanding. You can't just be a brand representative coming here and just claiming stuff. You need to have proof. And what this is all about is that there's so much beauty in its very essence is, of course, driven by science from the very beginning. Yeah. And given this huge competition between brands and that we see so many launches daily, on a daily basis, you can't just stand still. You need to continue to develop and renovate, as they say, when they sort of relaunch, when a brand relaunch a new product with maybe a new packaging or a new formulation, they call it renovate. they need to constantly measure or consider their current range and not only develop new products, because they are very good at developing new products. That's a big part of the sustainability issue. But also they can't just be happy about having a best-selling product that's been around for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because the consumers are demanding so much more.
So let's talk about why we want to enter this. And before we get into some of the trends, and we want to bring some value in this actual podcast, but we have to plug our upcoming Insights newsletter. It's something we've been working on. I can't even know how long. It's been in the works for over a year, maybe a year and a half. So I'll just take it from my perspective. Obviously, Scandinavian Mind, we started 3 years ago now. August 2020, we launched the platform with the aim of what we call being kind of a bridge between technology and the lifestyle industries. And what we've learned during these years is there's lots of developments in the fashion industry. Big part of what we cover is in the fashion industry. But next to that, I think beauty is running up, and I don't know if we want to measure them. Who is the most innovative? We can talk about that in this episode. But what we see is this thirst for information and knowledge and insight about these topics in the beauty industry. And what's been missing in the market, and where we want to play a role, is to be that platform, that Insights newsletter that can bring intelligence, world news, and also commentary on what's happening to the people who are working in this industry. So let's plug it right away. If you're interested in subscribing to our Insights newsletter on beauty innovation, visit scandinavianmind.com/beauty innovation. You can get early access if you sign up there. We'll launch this in the next few weeks. Johan, what's you're out talking to the industry, and that's also a major reason why we have the authority and credibility of doing this, is that we get access to all the news in the industry. We meaning 99% of the time, you go to all these launches, you visit the factories, you learn about these new technologies. How do you see the need for information in the industry right now?
Yeah, it's a flood of it. When you dig into it, it's so much going on. And it's a huge industry. And the more I dig into it, the bigger it gets. Yeah. So what I think is important here, I think you said it very correctly, but it's also about curation. What's relevant, and specifically for the beauty industry or those interested in the beauty industry in the Nordics and beyond. Because we can talk hours about the flood of information coming, and also, of course, scientific reports. Yeah. But that's a bit hard to comprehend. You need someone, in this case, it might be us, to just curate and what's relevant and what can you benefit from it.
It will be us. I'm super excited about this, and I think we can bring a lot of value to the industry and to beauty-interested people, both here in the Nordics, but also globally, because I do think we have a unique perspective here in the Nordics. We'll get into that. Let's dive into some of these trends that we have defined, and that we, unfortunately, since it's print, real estate is scarce on these pages. I will say it's, I don't know if it's like about a third of the work that you've done that we were able to put in the print issue, but let's have that as a basis for this podcast. So first out, we're talking about virtual worlds. This might seem contradictory. How do you put beauty in a virtual space? It's something that lives on your body, on your skin, etc. Why have we decided to focus on this?
It's affecting so many different industries. If you take, for instance, Roblox, you tend to come back to Roblox when we speak to each other, and how much it affects the younger generation growing up. Also, metaverse, and it's still to be not decided, but we still need to figure out how the metaverse will impact our daily lives. But a bunch of beauty brands have jumped on the wagon here in order to become early adopters and to, sort of like the end consumers, just like evaluating and exploring what's working, what is not working, which campaigns can we run in, for instance, Roblox or other digital worlds, and how can we benefit from it. And we have one quote in the print issue by researchers at MMI, and it says like, where beauty goes next within the metaverse is unclear, as the possibilities seem limitless. If brands have learned anything from the launch of TikTok, it's that early tech adopters stand the best chance of success. So if they were a bit late on TikTok, for instance, they don't want to be late on joining the virtual worlds.
And how does a beauty brand activate themselves in these virtual worlds, and what are sort of the benefits for both the brands and the consumer? And I guess here is where the term phygital comes in.
Definitely. So it can be about creating a pop-up, a virtual pop-up. We have one example here, House of Nyx. They opened a virtual pop-up where they presented their new campaign, or they've done it several times actually, but the latest one, they presented their latest campaign, and also, of course, the users could try the products and try products on their virtual avatars, and also, of course, click and collect, buying the products, the physical products that they were showing in the virtual worlds. But it's also, of course, a marketing objective here, that you can show, as mentioned, that you are an early adopter, and that you're down with the kids and Gen Z, and to be one of the first to join this new coming mega trend. Because if we were to pick one coming trend, I would say it might be three, but one of them is definitely virtual worlds.
Yeah, we mentioned Swedish beauty brand Foreo as one of them who did. They claim to have done the first ever skincare launch. Was that the term?
Yeah, they chose for the launch of Luna 4, which is the latest of their sort of a modern iconic product. They've only been around for like 10 years, but it's a modern icon in the beauty industry.
Hugely successful at that.
Yeah, it's multi-million dollar company. So and they decided to put the launch of Luna 4 in the metaverse, becoming the first one.
Well, obviously, both. I think there's utility in this kind of phygital world of doing virtual try-ons and so forth. We'll probably see more of these marketing activations as well.
Yeah, virtual try-ons is the one buzzword to remember here, because that's already huge, and it's also used by e-tailers and retailers alike, merging physical and virtual worlds, where you can try your lipstick before you buy it in a web shop, for instance. And this will grow huge.
All right, let's move on to our second trend, and that is, of course, packaging. A huge issue for the beauty industry, not least from a sustainability perspective. There's a lot of plastic being used, which is essential for keeping the freshness of the products. Also hugely troubling for the environment to use that many oil-based packaging for these products. How can we begin to understand what's happening in the packaging space right now?
A lot of plastic, virgin plastic.
A lot of plastic, yeah.
It's said to be more and more often recyclable plastic, meaning that you can go to the bin and it will become recycled. But the infrastructure for recycling plastic is not mature enough on certain markets, and it's very much up to the end consumer to recycle.
Well, there's also challenges in terms of having the plastic being recycled in such a way that you can actually use it again for these purposes. So this is a complex issue to deal with. But there are some numbers here that's interesting. I just want to start with that, and we can go into some of the examples. But 74% of consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable packaging, according to THG Ingenuity. Here's the nightmare number is 80 billion plastic and shampoo and conditioner bottles are thrown away annually, according to a number we saw in Business Insider. So again, a huge issue. Let's bring some of the positive news here. What's happening? Because there are a lot of innovations happening that we want to bring forth.
Definitely, and the Nordics are paving the way here, and especially Finland. I wonder what's in the water in Finland. Because,
two prime examples from Finland, or is it three? No, two.
Yeah, so we have, for instance, we've covered Sulapak, the startup or scale-up several times, and their bio-based packaging that they have offered to the likes of Lumene, the Finnish skincare brand, and Chanel and many other industry players, as a way to replace virgin plastic with byproducts from the Finnish forest. So they've come quite a long way, and they've shown that it's not only it can not only be about having an innovative product, but it's also, of course, a challenge to scale it. And they're one of the great examples that you can actually scale it and become relevant for major industry players.
So from the Nordic forests there to the beauty house of Chanel. I love that. What else is going on?
Yeah, we have several great examples. You mentioned the problems of keeping the plastic in great condition even after recycling, and we have they call it like conglomerate. It's the name is Carbios, and they've teamed up with Biotherm and I think Pepsi and L'Oreal Group, and in order to use enzymes to actually, when they are mature and market ready, which they are not, they're only in the pilot phase so far, they claim to offer infinite recycling of virgin plastics, because that's obviously, as you mentioned, a huge challenge that the plastic will, the quality of the plastic will decrease over time, and it can only last for like 3 or 4 times being recycled, because it's also, of course, a matter of security.
Right.
When it's when you talk about cosmetic products, you don't want to have packaging that's not stable enough to keep the product inside. So there are a bunch of great examples and a lot of innovative startups coming here, and also they're attracting a lot of venture capital money, because this is a problem for an entire industry.
Yeah.
So it's a great bet if you're into like getting attention from investors.
Well, with great problems come great opportunities, but I think the opportunities lie more in new technologies, new companies entering the space. What would be kind of a key takeaway for brands how to tackle this issue? Where should they look? What should they invest in? What type of pilot projects or new materials do you think they should look for?
I just came across one particular number from Lush, the skincare and wellness brand, saying that 95% of the cosmetics packaging are thrown away after one use.
Oh, yeah.
95%.
I'm not surprised.
So I think for brands, they need to look at how to... If you look at the social media videos posted on like the unwrapping experience, I think brands need to evaluate how to make the packaging perhaps more long lasting and a second life of it. We saw one example here of a Swedish startup. They launched it was an oil, so a skincare product. Which after use you could use it as a vase for your flowers.
Beautiful.
That's one great example.
Yeah.
So it's it's very much now up to like the consumer, how to take care of the packaging and the impact. While, as we have covered here before in the podcast, we will see more regulations from the EU. And it's a great takeaway for brands that they can be a bit far ahead here, that they need to think about those issues already now, so that they are not surprised when the EU come and knock on the door.
So obviously a huge issue, and I definitely think we need a combination of legislation and new sort of regulation around this. But I do think if you want to be an innovative brand, get out there and start thinking about how you use your packaging and maybe try out some of these new technologies that's out there. Let's move on to our favorite term in the industry, clean beauty. There was a constant discussion on the stage at SIF what clean beauty actually means, and I feel like everyone has their own kind of definition. It also goes into the term S-beauty or Scandinavian beauty, which has become quite a trendy term. How would you define clean beauty, Johan?
Yeah, so that's the issue. That's why we've put the quotation marks on clean beauty in the latest print issue.
Yeah.
Because if you ask one entrepreneur what it is, you will get one answer. If you ask a retailer, you will get one answer, an influencer, a third answer. And it's not really defined. And that's the issue. And it's also a matter of culture here, because clean beauty is a much more common expression in the US, while here in Europe we prefer to say natural beauty. But clean beauty is also the wave. It should be taken seriously, because it's also a matter of the end consumer is afraid on what they put on their skin. When they become more and more aware of what they put on their skin, they also become more and more afraid. And both in the EU and in the US, we have strict regulations. What you can put inside the jar for a beauty brand. But of course, we discover new things. And then it might take some time before a potentially harmful ingredient is removed or banned. And there can be different regulations on different markets, of course. So you can say that the end consumer, I wouldn't blame the end consumer for being concerned on what they put on their skin, especially not for instance, sunscreen on their kids, because sunscreen is a completely different topic that we can spend another episode on. But it's a sign of the times that, for instance, on TikTok, anyone can be a skincare expert instead of asking the skin therapist.
Well, something that speaks to what you just said, the popularity of the term, is the hashtag clean beauty has 1.4 billion views on the platform, which is just staggering. So that says something. That's also an explanation to why so many brands are entering this field. I would be surprised if the EU wouldn't place some kind of regulations on this term. They've already done it with the fashion industry. You can't talk about conscious collections, etc., unless you have something to back it up. So to be able to talk about clean beauty without some kind of framework around it, I think we need that. But nevertheless, a lot of brands are, targeting this space, and I think a lot of the Nordic brands, if they use the term or not, are kind of in this space, and that's where we get the sort of S-beauty or Scandinavian beauty. How would you define the S-beauty term?
As the opposite of K-beauty, the huge movement from Korea and Southeast Asia, with a 12-step routine that you had one product and another product and a third product and a fourth product and so forth. This was a huge movement. Time flies, so I don't know. I don't remember how many years, but for the last decade, it's been huge. While S-beauty is the opposite, where you have multifunctional products that you don't need to have a certain product for one use, but you can have several products that combines what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's it's the same with fashion. If you see one trend like skinny black denim on men, then you can be assured that the next the trend coming after that would be wide-legged
of course.
blue denim, unwashed. So yeah, opposites attract, right?
As one detail that you bring up in the report is that the fact that even water can be problematic when you talk about ingredients. Why is that?
Yeah, so the clean beauty movement is a lot about chemicals. That it's that they don't put any poison in the or non-toxic. And what me and my beauty editor colleagues here in Scandinavia tend to focus on is the fact that water in itself, which is in a regular beauty product, it can be between 70 and 95% of the product. And water in itself is a chemical. So if claiming to be chemical free, then I want to see that product.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. But I think clean beauty, just as a parting words, it's obvious that the interest from the consumer is huge. And I think that is something that the industry needs to take at heart. And that's why we see so much movement in this direction. But definitely we need to gather around some kind of definitions. We'll see if the industry can handle that by themselves or if they need help from government.
Yeah, and that's also, if I may interrupt, a problem, a huge problem for the beauty industry in itself, the lack of regulation.
Yeah.
You can claim anything. It's the similar, as you mentioned, with the EU and the fashion industry, that you can claim anything to be sustainable. And we have the similar situation in the beauty industry. You can, it's not a medical product, so you can basically claim everything without proof. And I wonder for how long.
Well, there's definitely movement, and we keep getting back to this sort of new directives from the EU, and we'll definitely get back on that on the podcast. Just one thing I've heard as a reflection, I've been speaking to people with kind of great insights on the matter from a Brussels perspective, is that historically, I think industries like fashion and beauty, in a kind of a male-driven, world of European politics, these are two kind of underserved industries, because I think the politician hasn't understood them well enough. And I think, but what we're seeing now is that, in part we have a new generation of politicians, but also if you look at the data of the emissions from these industries, how much plastic they use, how little is recycled, and so forth. Just from the data, we're going to see some real movement. But unfortunately, for all of us and for the industry, it has been underserved. There are not a lot of beauty and fashion lobbyists, walking around Brussels, speaking for these industries. And you can perhaps intuitively think it's a good thing with less lobbyists, but actually it's a bad thing, because we don't have people representing these industries. And once the EU starts regulating, they're not going to care. They're just going to place new rules on these industries, and just going to have to, as one person said, comply or die. But we'll get back to that. So from clean beauty, let's get into biotech. It's kind of a related topic. I find this hugely fascinating. Biotech, which is, of course, the use of or the practice of kind of mimicking technologies or processes that happen in the nature, but doing them in maybe kind of like a lab setting. Maybe I'm slaughtering the definition here. Am I right?
Yeah, it's huge. When I speak to industry representatives, when I get to interview them, almost everyone talk about it now. It was maybe the biggest takeaway from Cosmoproof in Bologna, the huge trade fair. And even the brands that haven't been around biotech, all of a sudden claim to be a clear biotech brand.
Yeah.
It's a buzzword, and it will only continue to grow.
Well, it's a buzzword, and what I find fascinating is I think we've moved kind of beyond viewing biotech as something technical, lab-grown, people in lab coats. We actually do have a picture of a person in a lab coat. But on the same time, we have brands like Lilla Bruket. Mats Johansson, the co-founder, he was on stage in Copenhagen during our beauty innovation talks. Lilla Bruket, obviously a brand that's associated with kind of down-to-earth nature, definitely coming from the clean beauty space. They are looking at these kind of advanced technologies to develop their products. So I think where there is an interesting intersection here, which I love, that kind of this highly technological processes can marry with this brands that are looking for natural ingredients, because in part we have to do this because just to go away from putting a strain on the environment, which would be the alternative, right?
Yeah, and I just need to add that Mats wouldn't be too happy if you refer them to being a clean beauty brand.
Sorry, Mats.
Yeah. I would definitely say though that if you define S-beauty, then you have Lilla Bruket.
Yeah.
And you're completely right. And also what Lilla Bruket did quite good and was the launch of their face care line. 6 months ago perhaps, where they merged natural skincare ingredients and biotech with a clear biotech focus. And also stating in the interview that I did with them that biotech is obviously the future. We've worked with it for several years, but now we will communicate more about it, because that's what I find so interesting when I interview those industry representatives. It seems that this is a new phenomena, which it's definitely not. As mentioned, almost all of them talk about it and the fact that they've done it for quite many years, but they haven't communicated it in the same way as they do now, because it hasn't been relevant. It's been perhaps hard to comprehend for the end consumers, but now they see that the end consumers are more and more like they're constantly looking for information, innovation, and then all of a sudden they feel that they need to communicate the fact that they're working on biotech.
But isn't the problem though that these are technologies also that they can't be fully transparent with them, because these are kind of proprietary technologies. They don't want to reveal to competitors, etc., exactly what they're doing. Maybe you can give some examples of what we learned.
Yeah, it's so many secrets in this industry because it's so competitive. If you can try to ask a brand like, okay, so where is this produced? And you will get a country, perhaps a city, not the name of the factory. But yeah, we have a bunch of startups and also beauty giants considering this being the next big thing. We have Biotherm as a great example. They were perhaps they were the pioneers, I would say, for biotech, and hence the name. And they're constantly developing their range, as all of the brands do, and they are part of a research museum in Monaco, which I got to visit. Like now it's already a year ago, where they work together with the museum, the Maritime Museum, to develop new formulations, and because a lot of this happens. It used to be much about algae and yeast and bacteria, and now we see more and more focus on the deep oceans.
So why are the oceans so, a point of reference, a point of interest?
Yeah, I mentioned it like last November when I visited the podcast and talked BeautyTech. I think it's the fact that those small animals or planktons, they're able to survive several thousand meters down in the ocean.
Yeah.
And why is that? What properties do they have? And how can we use it? And it's, of course, that's why this is driven by the large corporations, because it's, of course, very costly to engage such an operation. I haven't visited, but I can imagine to go down several thousand meters in the ocean. And of course, they can also work with contract labs and suppliers to get the ingredients from the deep oceans. But it's very costly, I can imagine. And but still very fascinating. And we haven't learned even 1% of what's deep down there. And how can we use it? That's the big question.
I love the fact that we're going to water. It's almost like we're going to the well, the fountain of youth, or something like that, to look for new technologies to help us in our beauty and wellness products. All right, I think we're doing quite fine on the timing here. We said we tried to do this under 45 minutes. Let's dive into the last theme here, which is retail tech. I think each and every one of these topics could be their own podcast, and they probably will. But let's get into some of the findings we did here, and this is also related to the virtual worlds also.
It sure is, and we get back to the phygital concept or definition or buzzword. The fact that retail, the future of retail, that's the $1 million question. And of course, a lot changed during the pandemic in terms of consumer behavior. We saw a bunch of startups coming up now, gaining a lot of attraction for being able to offer the brands digital solutions. And the pandemic was also a reason for brands and their R&D departments, perhaps not the R&D departments, but the marketing department and the brand departments to think again, like is the future of retail really physical? It might be not, and both you and I know that most likely it's not. And then they've now joined forces with, perhaps innovative startups in order to develop new solutions for the end consumer, which is much in the virtual worlds. That the fact that they are offering the end consumers the possibility to experience their to offer the brand experience, but in a digital setting.
So a lot of these is like a digital, almost like new digital worlds where you can experience the brand. I think the example we use here is the American startup Beyond XR, which is a kind of a plug and play solution, or I don't know, maybe they do custom solutions as well for major beauty brands. They call themselves a Shopify for the metaverse, but it's not really. It sounds like it's within the existing platforms like Roblox. That's not the case. They create metaverse-like experiences, for the beauty brands and the consumers to experience the products.
Yeah, definitely, and they're very much 2023. It feels the fact that they're already now offering. Perhaps you can say metaverse experiences, but not in the metaverse. So it's still from you're able to experience it not using VR glasses, but from your very own desktop or mobile. Yeah. But it will of course become even more relevant in the years to come, when we hopefully will see a lot of development for VR glasses or whatever comes in terms of technical solutions for this. But they're very, very early adopters, and that's why they've been able to, even though being just a startup, teaming up with the likes of YSL and L'Oreal and a lot of beauty giants.
I'm curious from a personal perspective, do you think beauty has a better chance of developing these new digital experiences than fashion, or is it similar?
I would say, given the current state, that the two worlds are already merged with those virtual try-ons that I mentioned, that you are actually able to try on the shade of your next lipstick purchase in a web shop already now. That beauty retail literally or almost died during COVID. Yeah. So they had to come up with solutions, and it's so much money, and that's of course similar in fashion. But fashion is a bit harder, I would say, to experience properly already now in a virtual setting, while we already now have the tools available for such a an easy product as your next lipstick. That's easier to for the end consumer to comprehend, I would say.
It's almost like it's easier to also create a similar type experience in a virtual setting that you have when you are in a beauty department store, for instance. I think in a way, shopping fashion online, we're kind of used to it. We used to sort of the grid of products and we click around, and that kind of works. Whereas if you search for beauty products, the actual packaging doesn't maybe serve its purpose. It's very small. It's hard to get that experience. So maybe you need something, even if it's just on a desktop computer. Maybe you need that kind of immersive world to get a sense of the brand and experience.
Yeah, that's a great summarize. And also, as I mentioned, for instance, House of Nix creating a virtual world.
Yeah,
creating something more, something that the end consumer doesn't. Hasn't experienced before.
Yeah. It's also fascinating. We highlight Finnish startup Reviv. There's an actual practical usage and functionality to some of these products that are purely digital. They have a kind of a skin scanning analytics tool powered by AI and AR, which any retailer basically can connect to their e-store. I think that's a very fascinating example.
Yeah, and it's another example, just like Beyond XR. The fact that a small startup back then, they're a lot bigger now, can team up with leading brands as soon as they have a great idea that is valuable for the brands. And the partner list for Reviv is impressive, to say the least. And I also want to mention here that a major trend that digs into this fifth macro trend from the latest issue is personalization.
Yes.
And don't make sure not to miss our portrait, our feature with Sela Lee, founder of Allure, offering beauty brands personalized skincare solutions.
Exactly. That's in the beginning of the issue. That's not part of the report, but definitely relevant to bring up here. All right, I think we did well. I think we did great. There's so much more to talk about, and this is obviously something that we will cover at length in our new Insights newsletter, Beauty Innovation. If you want to learn more about this topic, please sign up for early access. Visit scandinavianmind.com/beauty innovation, and everyone that signs up will be giving a downloadable PDF of this Beauty Innovation report from the latest issue. All right, Johan, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think we should bring up as a kind of a parting comment here?
This report by me also includes industry insights from 3 representatives. They're asked about their sort of favorite topic. One of them is Alain Mavon. He's very experienced. He's been in the industry for very, very long. He's now joined Lumene, the Finnish brand, as Vice President of R&D and Sustainability. And to wrap up, I think this quote is quite good and quite relevant for the times we're in. So he says here in the interview that reduced carbon footprint and diverting waste from landfill are just a few benefits we get from molecular recycling, which we will get back to online and maybe here in the podcast. The materials are also recyclable at the end of life, making them a truly sustainable option. I think that summarizes it all quite well. How innovative this industry is, how keen they are to improve and reduce their footprint, and with the Nordics once again being at the forefront here.
Exciting stuff. Okay, this has been the Scandinavian Mind podcast. Just a plug for next week. We will start publishing the talks from the Beauty Innovation Talks schedule at SIF earlier this year. We're gonna hear 3 beauty entrepreneurs talk about how to be a responsible beauty brand in 2023. Don't miss that. Don't forget to sign up for early access to our Beauty Innovation newsletter, and just to our regular newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter not to miss out on any content and events. And of course, again, get your own print copy of Scandinavian Mind issue 4. It's a lovely read. Thank you.
Thank you.